should try to help those around you with no expectation of return. Mm-hmm. And I think that's when humanity is at its best.
And welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Humanity 2.0 podcast. We are here with another amazing guest who is not only an author, but he's also amazing at martial arts, and he has wonderful companies that he has led. So with all due respect, we welcome Gene Burke to Humanity 2.0 podcast. Gene, how are you?
Oh, great. A real pleasure to be on your show tonight. Thank you.
Yes, we are so glad to have you. I read your background and I am just like inspired and I want to hear everything.
Oh, appreciate that. Thank you.
First off, I really want to know what is your definition of humanity based on your personal experience?
That's a great question. And, I think humanity has so much promise, but with that promise comes a lot of potential danger. I think that as a society and as groups and just as people on the individual level, everyone has so much potential within, and some people are great at tapping into it. Unfortunately, some people aren't even aware they have it, but they do. And, sometimes people take a different path that isn't always positive to both themselves and those around them. So, it's really quite a mix. I think humanity, if you look back, we've come such a long way. In so many different areas in life in terms of we hear, and this may sound odd, but we hear so much negativity in the news today, and negativity seems to surround us. But, overall, when you look at the world today, as opposed to even a few hundred years ago, yes, there are horrific things that go on constantly around the world, but typically overall, people are better off today than they were a few hundred years ago. Standard of living is better. People tend to treat each other better as a whole than they used to. And I think that's just an evolution that as we progress as a species, really, hopefully we continue that path towards more an enlightened view on not just ourselves internally, but those around us and how to enhance everyone's lives around us.
I like that you paint that idea of potential and how everyone has that potential, and whether they realize it or not kind of determines what happens next. Can you tell me about examples of humanity that you've seen at its best?
Yeah, it could even be the simplest thing. I've seen many people over my lifetime who have helped people that they may not even have known or really didn't have, if they did know, with no expectation of any type of return or to get something out of it. I've seen so many people over the years help people to people that could do nothing back for themselves. In other words, they couldn't give anything back, and they did it out of the goodness of their heart. And I think we all have that within us. And I think it's wonderful when take that step and help those that are not as fortunate as themselves, because the reality of it is in life, things can change in a moment, for everyone. You could be a multimillionaire, and, overnight you could lose your fortune, let's say. Mm-hmm. Or vice versa, you could be someone who's in a bad spot and something miraculous happens, and all of a sudden you find yourself in a better place in life and a better mindset. So, it's really important. And it's touching for me when I see someone. I'll tell you a story. So when I was a kid, my dad, used to go down we used to live in New York City. So, I used to live in Brooklyn. So, my dad used to take me on Sunday down to the Bowery. And there were a lot of homeless people down in the Bowery. This is back in the 60s, late 60s. And he would just hand out sandwiches. He would just walk around and hand out sandwiches. And he usually put $1 or $2 in there, with the sandwich and something. Uh-huh. And he never did it. He never did that with with anyone even really recognizing that he was doing it. And that was an important lesson for me very young in life, in my life, that you should try to help those around you with no expectation of return. And I think that's when humanity is at its best.
I would totally agree with that. So how did you feel watching him do that? Did you get inspired? Were you inquisitive? Like, what are you doing here? What were you?
Well, yeah. Yeah, great question. So I think I was probably, I was maybe like 7 or 8 or 9 years old. And I was like, what is going on? Like, yeah. I had no idea what was going on. And he would just, say, he wouldn't really talk too much about it. He goes, hey, we're going to, go help some people today.
Yeah.
And just do it. He actually, it's kind of this may be a weird thing, and this is kind of when you see humanity at its best, even in horrific circumstances. So he was a paratrooper in World War II, and he never spoke about the war. But he did tell me a story one time, and it was about how this was actually a very important lesson for me. So they went through boot camp with a guy who wasn't physically wasn't like a stud. He really struggled through boot camp, but everyone really, really liked him. He was a really, really good guy. And it's a horrible story, but it was an important lesson for me. They were in a firefight somewhere in Europe. This guy who could barely get through boot camp made the ultimate sacrifice. And this guy, knowing that he would be killed, just got up and ran into the middle of the field so that people, he would be shot and people could find, and then his men, the guys on his team could, take care of that problem. And what my father told me was, and this is what stuck with me, he said, always be kind to everyone because you never know who's going to make the ultimate sacrifice. You never know what someone will do just out of pure love for their fellow man. And, so many times in our society, we look down on people, not everyone, of course, but, there are so many people who are having challenges that no one knows about. And yet those are the type of people who will do the most for people. It's funny, like if and I've never experienced this, but I've heard this in so many different stories. So often around the world, you could go to very, very poor locations where people have literally nothing. And yet, you hear this, I've heard this so many times over the years. And yet when let's say a traveler goes, and it could, let's say, typically a Westerner, they go into the village and these people who have literally nothing and no food will feed that person and treat them as an honored guest. Mm-hmm. And think about that if we did that as society across the board. If everyone took that approach that, your fellow man is worthy of acknowledgement and honor and to make sure that they're okay. And I know that's kind of like going off on a extreme there, but, I think, again, it goes back to potential. I think so many people have so much potential, but I think what happens is day-to-day living overwhelms people sometimes. Mm-hmm. And they don't have an opportunity to express that love, that external love to other people that they may not know.
I would agree. That is a lot.
Sorry.
No. It's good because the whole point of this show too is to kind of let you, explore. And as you're thinking, you're connecting these stories, but then you're also finding some other stuff that's like deep down. Like you probably didn't think you were going to talk about your father's war. Yeah. I mean, that was a powerful story, and oh my God, I could feel that. So.
And I can tell you that had a lifelong, he told me that story one time, and that one conversation had an impact on my life that resonated with me for my entire life. And, and I can imagine that he didn't think it would have that type of impact.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He was just telling me a story. And, in a lot of ways it changed my life because I viewed people much differently after that. I mean, I was a kid. I didn't really have that much of a view of people anyway at that point.
Right. But as you got older, your interpretation of that story probably changed over time.
Yeah.
You probably thought about it more and more. Just like, the act of giving people sandwiches. I'm sure as you got older, do you find that that's what happened, that you recounted all of those experiences and the stories and just had a totally different viewpoint, and then it changed you? And in what ways did that change you exactly?
Yeah, it changed me because, and listen, people are people and, everyone has a selfish side, but because human nature to be somewhat selfish because you have to survive. But it also makes you realize like that act that my father doing that without anyone knowing him ever doing it. And just out of the kindness of his heart, because he felt bad. He was trying to connect in a way that would show compassion and love to someone that, that maybe hadn't felt that in a while. Mm-hmm. And, it's always kind of stayed with me. I'm not anywhere near the way my father was. I wish I was. I could always be more giving and things like that. But, I always think about that. I think about that when I see people on this, really, it's an amazing thing when someone just does something with no expectation of even anyone knowing they're doing it. I mean, mm-hmm. I'm sure he didn't think that, decades later, I would be talking about this on a podcast. You know what I mean?
Right.
He didn't do it for that reason.
Yeah. Is he still with us, or did he pass?
No, he passed years ago. Yeah, he was a great guy. He was an interesting mix. You know, he was a very, very tough guy. You know, he was a paratrooper, and he went through I found out some things after the war that he never told me about, that one of my uncles told me about. I mean, he had seen some really, you know, horrific things. And, but I tell you, he was the most laid back, chilled out guy you ever met.
Yeah.
I mean, he was just, you know, his kind of viewpoint was, you know, like people would be freaking out. He was really very relaxed, and he would be like, you know, it's really not that important. You know, that was kind of his, you know, I think the war had that effect on him. You know, he was like, you know, he would see people getting upset about really trivial things, and he'd be like, nah, it's really not that important. Nothing to spend any energy on.
So do you think it's because he's seen like the absolute worst that he's like, no, that's not.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, absolutely. That's exactly the reason why. I think he saw so many things. It's amazing that someone could mentally survive some of that stuff,
right?
You know, beyond the physical. And, you know, he was so chilled out, you know, he was just a really funny guy. But, you know, you could tell it was in there, you know, because I saw him get mad a couple of times. And, you know, you could see that spark was still in there, but, you know, he never really got too upset about anything.
So it's an interesting concept to think about, how someone could experience just the absolute worst, but then still have it within them to do these really humanitarian efforts for other people.
It's kind of funny you say that, because I think in a lot of ways, I think by nature he was kind of like that, but I think his experiences in the war and then just in life in general, he was a very, very loving man. You know, he was a very giving guy. He's Christian. He was trying to live his Christian faith, but he never pushed it on anyone. And he didn't think that was the point. He just tried to love people just because he thought it was the right thing to do.
Right.
And I think because he did see the worst in people, that, you know, I think that impacted him in a way that, I tell you, he was one of the most positive guys that I've ever met. I mean, he was just very upbeat. Honestly, I never heard him say a negative word about anybody. It was amazing.
He sounds like a really good guy, and he did have an effect on you. And I'm sure, like, you know, there are signatures of his goodness in the work that you do now, you know? So
I appreciate that. I'd like to think so, but you know, I appreciate that.
I mean, cause in your work, you're not looking for, you know, a return either, right? I mean, you don't do it because you want, you know, author accolades or the back from the business world, like. And correct me if I'm wrong. I mean,
no, you know what's funny though? You know what's funny? I never thought I would. I never envisioned trying to write anything. So, you know, I was talking to my wife about this probably about a month ago. A couple of books out, and I'm like, what's interesting for me is, like, even if a single book wasn't sold, right? What's fun for me is, like, I could look at this book and say that came out of my mind. From the, you know, like I designed the covers, we put the book together, all that good stuff like that. I can tell my grandkids, one of my grandson's 6, so he wouldn't understand it, but like my 2 older granddaughters, I could show them the book and say, hey, you know, Papa did this, you know, and even if it never sold a copy anywhere,
but you put it out into the world.
Yeah. You know, and for me, that's fun.
Yeah.
You know, it's just, you know, I hope it helps some people. I've gotten some good feedback, particularly on 2 of the books. So hopefully it's helping people in a small way, you know.
Yeah.
And for me, it's a fun experiment, you know.
And so just to catch everybody up, I have some of these titles as The Iron Road, Striking Success, and is it The Dojo of
Yeah, The Dojo of the Mind, yeah.
Yeah, that sounds really amazing. How did you harness all of that, all of the knowledge and the things that you wanted to share? How did you translate that into these books? Like, did you have a process? Did it just happen over years? How did you do that?
One of them was a long time. Actually, they all took a while, but one was a long time in process. So, you know, I'm also an operations manager by trade. And because of my martial arts background, I just thought there was so many things that are core to martial arts that can translate really well. The book Striking Success came about. And it was just so many of the things within the martial arts about discipline and focus and, being mindful and so forth can really translate well into business and into leadership. And along with that, two of the books are kind of related to the martial arts, and the other one isn't. But Dojo of the Mind really came about because I think there's such a crisis today. Especially after COVID, it's become much more, if not more prevalent, it's more known. There's such a mental wellness kind of crisis in the world today. Dojo Mind came about because so many things within the martial arts, and really any physical activity, it could be anything. You could be gardening in your backyard, or, whatever it might be, anything that's keeping you physically active can have such a powerful and positive impact on mental wellness. And obviously in the book, I make it very, very clear, if someone's having challenges, it's really, really important to get help if you need it. Find a counselor and discuss your challenges or issues. And I think especially for men, men think that's a weakness, asking for help, especially when it comes to like mental wellness and stuff like that. Because, I grew up in the 60s. And for boys back in the 60s, crying wasn't an option when you were a kid, But I think what happens is, today especially, it's so important to reach out for help. And it's actually a sign of strength than weakness to say, hey, I need some help. And it could be with a friend. It could be with a counselor. If you have religious affiliations, it could be with, whatever that translates into. But I think it's really important for people to speak out and seek help when they need it. But the Dojo of the Mind comes about because, there's so many things with physical activity, exercise, and in this case, the martial arts, that kind of take people out of themselves when they're doing it.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's a very important process because so many of us are so stuck in our heads all the time, and that wheel is always turning. Sometimes it's okay to get off the wheel.
Yeah, that is another area that I'm fascinated with about your background, because let's be honest, the most karate I know is Karate Kid. That's Mr. Miyagi, yeah, all that good stuff. It came back, with Cobra Kai. That's all I know. So tell me about, these really cool aspects of karate that, resonate within you and I guess like to humanity. How can humanity benefit from martial arts?
Yeah. So, the martial arts are interesting in the fact that, one, in most systems in martial arts, there's like a belt system. So, you progress up the belt. So it's really good because it helps with goal setting and focusing your resources to reach that goal. It's also really important, and this is all beyond the physical. Obviously, the martial arts has so many benefits physically from a health standpoint, activity and balance and strength and all that good stuff. But beyond that, it helps with you learning how to be mindful, being focused on what's happening as opposed to, what you're worrying about. I was listening to a former UFC champ, Machado, and he's a, multiple black belt in karate. And he said something very interesting. It really resonated with me. He said that if you're not training all the time, in the martial arts, like every day, you're a former black belt. I thought that's really interesting, because I don't train every day anymore. I did for many, many years. But I thought that was so interesting. He's like, if someone's a baseball player, a professional baseball player, and if they're in their 50s and they say, I'm a baseball player, you're like, nah, not really. You were, but you're not now. You may have the skill sets, but you're not really, so I just thought that was very interesting. But I got off topic there. But, for me, for a large part of the time when I was training initially with my sensei, I used to go to the morning classes because my shift was weird at work. I worked kind of late, late afternoon to the evening. So I used to go to the morning classes. And I could tell you, it was amazing. I could have had the absolute worst day at work the night before and just miserable. Yeah. And I would get up and this is one of the great things about anything that you do. I'm using martial arts as an example here. It could be going to the gym. It could be going to ballet, dance class. It could be anything. But the discipline of getting up and forcing yourself to do it, even when you don't want to do it, is a really, really critical factor. It impacts so many areas of your life because if you have discipline in that, you could have discipline in anything. I would go to class not wanting to go, just walk in, you would see your fellow students, and right away you're in a community, so you're feeling you're engaging with friends. So that was your mindset. And then you would begin training. The style I took was a pretty hard style. I couldn't be thinking about what a crappy night I had the night before. I was thinking about, can I finish this? Could I get through this workout? And then particularly after a hard workout, it was so mentally invigorating to think that, wow, I accomplished that and I didn't think that I could. Mm. And that builds confidence. So, especially for younger folks, I saw so many kids come through who may not have had a lot of confidence when they came in. And you would watch them progress both through the belts, but also personally. Mm. You could see a transformation in their personality because they might come in very, very shy, very unsure of themselves, very soft-spoken. And people could always be soft-spoken even when they're very confident. Saying that's a bad thing. It's actually a positive thing.
Yeah.
But you would see the transformation in that. And that translates into life. If you have something that's a hard task and you commit to do it and you say to yourself, hey, I'm not going to quit until I get to this level. When you go to work and you go to start your job, you start your career and people see that focus and that discipline, I tell you, it can really help you in your career as well and in your life. Because you can do things, you can do things that are hard even when you don't want to do them. Mm-hmm. And that builds a lot of confidence and stability.
In addition to, being able to see themselves progress and get those other belts and feel better, obvious differences from where they started, do you think also that the community, having that team environment helps them and that humanity as a whole?
Oh, absolutely. Unless you live on an island, yeah, you're going to be dealing with people, So like in the martial arts, the community there, what was great about it was, especially when classes were hard or someone was going for a belt test or someone was competing, the community would gather around them and help support them. Hmm. And, that helps that person who's being supported realize that teamwork is really important and having that support behind you is important. And it also helps people who are doing the supporting, realizing how powerful their support could be to someone. I can remember when I was going for my black belt, my first black belt, and I was having a bad day. And I had one of my really close friends who I used to spar with all the time. And he was very painful to spar. He was a very good fighter. And he was at my black belt. And I'll never forget this. And while I was having a hard time, and he supported me every minute of that belt test. He didn't have to be there. Mm-hmm. He wasn't testing that day. He had nothing to do with the belt test. Yet he showed up that day and he stood by my side, off to the side though, and shouted out words of encouragement through the entire process. And that stayed with me that stayed with me to this day. That's someone who had, again, nothing to gain from showing up. Mm-hmm. Took the time out of his day to come in and to support a friend. And I try to pass that along. I try to support people around me.
Yeah.
And it's an important lesson that, sometimes people need help.
Mm-hmm. That's an awesome friend. That's me.
Oh, yeah. Earl.
So tell me about Third Monkey Productions.
Yeah, so very interesting. That's a weird name for a company. But
I like it.
Yeah, so I heard this quote one time, and it kind of resonates with me with kind of my mindset and with life and what I try to teach, through my books and stuff like that. So the concept behind that is, the third monkey is, imagine you're on the ramp to Noah's Ark, and there are 3 monkeys, and you're the third monkey, and it's starting to rain. What are you going to do? You have to come up with a solution. You just can't hope things get better. You have to think through the process. So how do you get on the boat? So how to be resourceful, how to think through problems, how to not give up. Well, the guy who started Kentucky Fried Chicken. Mm-hmm. Supposedly, I don't know if this is true or not, but I'm pretty sure it is. Supposedly he went to like, I don't know, like 100 banks or something like that. Everybody turned him down. So we're not going to give you money for something crazy as that. I'll give you a personal example. So my mom, my folks were divorced when I was very, very young. And she was actually one of the first police women on the New York City police.
Really?
She was actually in the second class of women. They used to call them police maidens before they made them police officers.
Wow.
She was in the second class of women who became actually police officers. And I remember she wanted to get us out of Brooklyn. She wanted us to, live in the suburbs. And she went to 22 banks and was turned down because she was a single mother with 3 kids, but my older sister had moved away at that time. Yeah. And she went to 22 banks and 21 of them turned her down. And she was like, that was her mindset. You never quit. And if what you're doing isn't working, keep your eye on the goal. Change your tactics until you figure it out.
So did she end up getting a yes?
Oh yeah. The 22nd bank gave it a yes.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. She was another character.
Yeah.
She was tough as nails. Very funny. And, she had a very unique perspective, especially for me growing up as a young man, gave guidelines and said, hey, here are going to be the consequences if you don't follow the guidelines. Mm-hmm. And, it was like, hey, you're going to be a young man, figure it out. Like, you would think someone like that would be overly hovering and, because she was a police officer, overly protective or whatever. Right. And she was like, nope, figure it out. Just, don't be stupid.
Did you have moments where you did have a little stupidity, or was it like?
Oh yeah. She, especially in my mid-teens, and she would correct that in her own way. So I had 2 very, 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 very different people, but 2 very interesting parents. They were interesting. They were a lot of fun in both their own ways.
In addition to your parents, who else influenced who you became?
Oh, my wife. She's been so incredibly supportive, and she is honestly of anyone I've ever met. She is the most giving person I've ever met. Never asked for anything from anybody. She's very humble, and that's had a huge impact on me in my life because she's someone who typically looks out for someone else before she looks out for herself. And that's had a big impact on me in my life.
In what ways did it have an impact?
Especially like in my 20s and even into my early 30s, I think we all go down different paths. I think I went through a period where I was a lot more selfish than I needed to be. Mm-hmm. I was more materialistic than maybe I needed to be, even if I never really got that many material things. My mindset was like that. We both met when we were a little bit later, older in life. And we've both been through, some things. Mm-hmm. And, her kindness and her generosity towards others really, makes me pause even today. Like I'll think about something that maybe, I might want to do, or, I'm thinking in a particular way, and I'll kind of think about what she would do. Sometimes I'm getting irritated by something and kind of think about how she would handle it. And it gives me pause, and that's good to have pause sometimes.
100%. What is your wife's name?
Deidre.
So you ask yourself, what would Deidre do?
Oh yeah. What would Deidre do? I really do.
That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah.
What do you see as far as the forecast for humanity and where we're headed? I know there's potential, but do you believe that potential is going to continue to grow, or foresee obstacles? What do you think?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So, in some ways, I think we're at a crossroads with humanity. So there's a lot of positive things going on in the world. And yet there are a lot of negative things going on in the world. And I think that, and I mean globally, I think that we're going to come to a point at some point as a society, because the world is getting smaller and smaller, with technology and the internet, information and travel. Things aren't even like 50 years ago. I mean, a computer in your hand, you could call people anywhere around the world and look up anything on Google. Right. I think the technology has outstripped capacity to think things through sometimes. I think because of technology, we really, really have to be careful in the years upcoming. I think we have absolutely fantastic potential around the world. But I think around the world, there are different stages where societies are. And I think as technology has connected us all, I think that's part of the challenge.
Mm-hmm. I was about to ask, do you think technology sometimes is a barrier in itself?
Yeah, I really do. Technology is a fantastic thing, but it could also be used for really bad things.
Right.
And sometimes, especially with information, and especially as humanity continues to develop and grow.
Yeah.
Different people are at different stages in the development, culturally and from a society standpoint, or even, individually. And I think it's really, really important that, as a species, we figure out how to gather and use the information so that people as a whole can move forward in a positive way. But I think that's kind of a challenge. I think we have some years ahead of us where we're really going to have to figure out in some way, collectively or however it works out. And trust me, I'm not saying anything like censorship or anything like that. But what I'm saying is, there's so much information out there.
Yeah.
That can be used for good or evil,
Sure.
And I go back to potential. I think so many people have so much potential that they don't even realize. I really believe that. But I think that so many people get trapped in their head trying to get by just day to day. They don't have an opportunity to breathe sometimes. And if they give themselves that opportunity, kind of step back sometimes and think about, not just themselves, but, if I may, I have a painting that I absolutely love, and there's a story behind it. The painting is of a single rowboat in the middle of a lake, and there's no one around it. Here's why I love that picture is there's a story, and this goes back to humanity. So the story is that there was a monk one time who went out and he wanted to go out and meditate and get away from everyone, get on his boat and meditate. So he got into a rowboat and he rowed out to the middle of the lake because he figures, okay, no one's around, right? I can meditate in quiet and peace. And suddenly he's meditating and his boat is tapped hard by another boat. And now his eyes are closed. He's meditating and he's feeling the anger. He's like, oh my gosh, this is what I want to do. I just wanted this time to go and meditate and clear my mind. And I can't even be left alone here. So he fights that thought. And then he continues to meditate. And again, it's tapped. And he goes through the same process. Then it happens a third time. And he opens his eyes, ready to scream at the person in the other boat. And it's an empty boat. He realized the anger was inside himself. It had nothing to do with external circumstances. So the anger was in him. I think all of us at some level, people have things in them that they don't work through and they attribute to other things, but they focus outward before focusing inward. I think as a society, if we're going to collectively move forward, I think that's a really important thing to think about. We can't fix the world if we haven't fixed ourselves. And by fixing, I don't mean you're broken, but we expect society to be well-oiled, loving and forgiving and helping people. But if we're not doing that within ourselves, it can't happen as a society.
That was actually something I was going to ask about, the potential and unlocking that within all of ourselves. Are there any other bullet points that you would prescribe for people to help unlock their potential?
Well, one of the things I think is really important is people to be kind to themselves. I tell you, sometimes we don't tap into our potential because what does often people think, right? I mean, not everyone, but I mean, a lot of people, hey, I'm no good. I'm miserable. I'm not, not good looking. I'm blah, 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 blah. There are endless negative things that we tell ourselves. And I really believe this. I believe that individually, many people will say things to themselves that they would never say to a friend, ever. And yet we should be our best friends. But we fill ourselves with negativity. Hey, I'm no good. Hey, I can't do that. Hey, whatever. The Japanese have a great philosophy. I found this through the martial arts. And the phrase is 7 times down, 8 times up. So that means you're going to fail. I don't look at a failure as failure unless I haven't learned something from it. Some of the best things in my life have happened because of failure. And I had to choose a different path. It turns out to be better. So I think that by being kind to yourself, it gives you an opportunity to say, hey, let me try that. Like people think, oh, I'm no good. I'm not smart enough. I'm not this. The worst thing that can happen is it doesn't work. Just try something else. And I think by being kind to ourselves, you can tap into some of that potential inside ourselves. Give yourself a chance to explore your capabilities and your potential.
You kind of cut out earlier when you first began telling the story of the Japanese.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It cut off right when you said 7.
Okay, yeah. So it's 7 times down, 8 times up. And what that means is you can fail 7 times, but as long as you get up that 8th time, you're not failing.
Got it.
And that's what's so critical.
That makes more sense now.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. I didn't know how much you heard.
Oh, no. I heard most of it, but I just missed that first integral part. Yeah. Okay. But it was wonderful though. I mean, it's so true. I think a lot of us are afraid to go for it. We're creatures of habit. So I might be doing the same thing over and over when if I would just let it go and, go another path or, divert a little bit, then things could get better. But it's very hard for some people to let go of that and to do something different or to let themselves fail and be comfortable with it, because if you're a perfectionist and you don't like failure, like it's literally uncomfortable, then it's really hard.
It's really true. When you say perfectionist, over the years, I've had to work with some, always, very good people, but some people who are perfectionists, and we don't live in a perfect world. And, like I tell my kids all the time, if I can't control it, if I can't affect it, I don't waste that much energy on it. So if there's a problem and I could fix it, I'll fix it, or I'll do my best to fix it. If I can't fix it and it's outside of my control, well, then why am I spending energy on it? I can't do anything about it. So I tell them all the time, as they'll get older, they'll realize, and maybe this is just me, but I talk to some of those guys, around my age, we talk about sometimes the same stuff. I have a certain gas tank every day, and I'm really careful about where I spend my gas. What I'm going to use my energy on. And if it's not positive or trying to beat a positive outcome, or if I can't control it and it's whatever's going to happen, it's going to happen, I do my best not to spend that much energy on it. And that allows me energy to do things that I can affect and that I can make a positive change in.
Whenever I get overwhelmed with stuff, I think about what can I control? What can I do right now? I spend like maybe 75% working from home and then 25% in an office or wherever. And when I'm having like a rough day and there's a lot of things going on that I can't control, I find little things that I can. Like I could do a task in the house. I could throw the dog outside.
That's great.
Like things that you can control and see the result. You can wash the dishes. You see the result. The dishes are gone.
I tell you, that is such a great insight.
Yeah.
That really is, So even when, seriously, well, boy, I'm going to walk away. I hope you don't mind. I'm going to feel that is awesome. That insight's awesome. You could be having a crap storm going on around you. But if you could take that little thing that you can control that makes you feel good.
Yes.
That has a powerful impact on you, on your psyche.
Yeah, it sure does, because it's the act of completion, but then also knowing that you had a hand in completing something, whether it's small or just not even going to affect anyone else but yourself, you still did something. And you had that feeling of relief because you completed something. So exactly right. Oh, that's great. I love that. Yeah, that's what I do. I don't do enough meditation. I'm so guilty of never doing that. I can't sit still. What do you tell people when they can't sit still? Well, I'm going to tell you, I'm not a master at it by a long shot. I'll give you an example. So I have a really, really hard time meditating. I just do, right? And I've tried, but so how I do it? I go out, and again, this goes back to physical. So like I'll go hit the heavy bag or I'll go work out
And that's my meditation because I'm not thinking. I still believe this to this day. It goes back to the martial arts. Like if I've had a bad day, I have a heavy bag that I'll go hit the heavy bag and I'm not thinking about anything. Or I'll have some weights and I'll go lift some weights and I'm not thinking about anything. And for me, that's moving meditation because I'm getting out of myself. And I think that's one of the things that, meditation, and for people who are really good at it, fantastic. You know what's amazing about when you meditate? This is what I find fascinating about it. So I try to set aside some time every day. It might only be 5 minutes just to kind of, calm the mind down and kind of, focus on my breathing. Mm-hmm. What's really interesting is, I'll try to count to 10. And there are some days where it's great, right? And I breathe in, breathe out, 1, 2, 3. Right. And there are some days where I can count to 10, then I start over again, there's no problem. And there are some days I keep getting to 2. And something pops in my mind.
Yeah.
But you know what I realized? That's normal. Meditation isn't about emptying your mind. It's about just letting it be. I mean, mine, I'm no meditation master, but
I've heard that when you get those intrusive thoughts that just come through, you're just supposed to just like acknowledge it and let it pass or something.
It's like a cloud.
Yes.
Going across the sky. Just, if you focus on it, then you're thinking about it. Then it controls you. Yeah. But if you just let it kind of go by, but it's funny. There's some mornings like I'll get up and I'll be like, well, I got the 2 every time. Not a great meditation day, but kind of is a good meditation day because I realize my mind is a little bit ramped up that day.
Yeah. So in all of your experiences as a martial artist, as an author, as a mentor, what would you say is your message to humanity?
That's a good question. So for humanity and ourselves, I would say be kind to yourself and be kind to other people, because it's easy. I'll be honest. When I look at the world today, it seems to be easier to be mean or dismissive or combative. I think it's harder today to be kind. And if you look at the news or you look at what's on YouTube and things like that, constant postings about confrontation and people just getting into it and, having these negative interactions. I think that if we step back a little bit and breathe, realize that everyone is fighting a battle that you know nothing about. It could be anything, it could be just that day. It might not be a life-altering thing. It could be just that day. If we could give each other a little bit of a break now and then to each other, try to be a little kinder, more understanding, I think the world would be a little less chaotic.
Yeah, 100%. I like that thought of recognizing that there's more going on for every person than what we see. Acknowledging that and giving them grace, giving ourselves grace, but also connecting and having the time to stop and think they might be going through something as opposed to quick judgments and reacting based off that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. Are there any things that you are super passionate about that you're working on right now in your professional efforts? Any other books that you're releasing, etc.?
Yeah, right now I'm kind of sitting back a little bit for the book. I have a couple ideas. I haven't really thought them all the way through, but I'm kind of like in a reflective stage. Think about what I'm going to be, what I might do next. So I'm just kind of enjoying what I have out there now, and I've had the great opportunity. Once again, thank you for having me on your show. I really do appreciate it. I've had the opportunity to be on a couple of podcasts, and that's a lot of fun. And I'll be honest, still kind of pinch myself, and I'm like, man, I can't believe people want to hear what I want to say. But for me, it's a great honor. But it's also a lot of fun.
Well, you are a very humble and unique individual based on your background and where you've come from, how you've synergized martial arts and leadership, being an author and mentoring others. That's unique in itself. And you're so personable. So well done. Where can people find your books? Where can they find you on social networks, websites, all that good stuff?
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah. So the books on Amazon. And if you just type in books by Gene Burke, they pop up. I have a website. Amazon and website is basically where people can find me.
Can people contact you on your website?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The contact information is on there, and there's all these links. It's an easy click through.
Okay, great. Well, it has been an absolute pleasure having you, Gene. I thank you so much for sharing your stories about your family and your life. It has been so awesome to hear them. I feel like I know them.
Thank you.
You
much.
really had amazing parents, and your wife sounds awesome. So
thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your time.
It has been a real pleasure. A real pleasure to be on your show and speak with you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
We'll see you guys next week on another episode of Humanity 2.0 podcast. Gene, again, amazing, wonderful pleasure. Have the best. What is today? Today Monday?
Yeah.